Hey guys, welcome to the inaugural episode of Beyond the Ballot, where you have a few Tennessee girlies, myself, Nadira Freeman in Nashville, Tennessee, Senator London Lamar out of West Tennessee, Shelby County, and our best friend, Jules over in East Tennessee, Jules Bates, who we're going to just come together and talk about all the things political, but then beyond that, right? Because there's more to life than just a vote, but life is depending on a vote. So, we want to get started by giving folks a minute to just tell you who they are, a little bit about what they have going on before we get into the hot topic. We need like all the teas, all the wines, because it has been going down for the past 3 days when it comes to what this political process is yielding itself for said November. So, London, I will kick it over to you first. Just give the people a little information on who you are and what you got going on.
What's up, everybody? It's Senator London Lamar, aka just call me London. And I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast. We're going to be talking about everything from politics to pop culture, and we're going to keep it real and raw. You know, my whole life and the last 11 years has been centered around community advocacy, branding politics, getting out the vote, and also serving in political office in various roles. So I have a lot to say, and I'm really excited to join these amazing women from across Tennessee to really just give you our raw perspective of how we feel like politics is happening right now, our raw feelings about it, and of course why it's important to hit the ballot box. So it's going to be a great season, and I hope y'all stay tuned with us.
Pass the mic.
Hey everyone, this is Jules, hanging out in East Tennessee, down in the bowl. I wear many hats. From campaign manager, hanging out as a director for a nonprofit, and even the church secretary. So that gets kind of fun, right? Especially when we're talking about politics. So I'm here hanging out with these beautiful ladies. We're going to talk about all things, especially being Black in Chattanooga, right? And also, the most important thing, our vote, our voice.
Yes, voting and being able to participate in the process is really the crux of what we want people to understand and understand why that's important. And so democracy is an experiment altogether, but it only works when everybody is involved. So if you're like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or, oh, I don't need to participate, that's a fallacy. You're believing the lies. Like, don't believe the lies. So part of it is like, a lot of times when we're talking about politics, it's just real wonky or just like not relatable, or it's just like that's dull. And part of this is being able to make it relevant to, people who look like us. And so thank the girls for coming through today, and let's just get started. We're in early voting, started like last week, and we have a primary election on August 1st. And people are going to vote for the president of the United States, guys. And we just had a bomb drop that the current president, Joe Biden, has decided to step back and not run for a second term. Now, no one has been hiding under a rock. So, of course, there's been a lot of question and doubt around his capacity to do a second term, as doubt about his capacity to even get through a campaign. So let's kind of just talk about some of the things that led us to getting here, and then how we actually feel about the decision that he did make to step down. And then we can lead into who's up next. And I will say, up until very recently, like this morning when I woke up, okay, I didn't know how I felt about it. But when I say I am on the team, I'm trying to find my shirt. We chatted about this earlier. I'm still looking for the right shirt, put it in my size. Let's go. So, okay, what do we feel about the decision, how long it took, and how we got here?
So I got a lot to say. I got something to say. And I think that this is a historical election, considering I'm acknowledging that Vice President Kamala Harris, future president, will be the first female president of the United States if elected. She will be the first African woman president of the United States if elected, the first Asian American woman become president of the United States if elected. And I think that is something to be proud of, all as women, especially women of color and Black women, who we have always held this country on our back. And then we seeing in this unprecedented times, we're dependent on a Black woman to hold the country down on our backs. Now, how do we get here? Guys, I will say the path to getting here is something that I am not pleased with. I'm thankful that everybody is rallying behind Kamala Harris. And I thank President Joe Biden for his service to the country and making a selfless decision by stepping aside regarding his capacity, his ability to run for president. But at the end of the day, we are in the last quarter of the game making very huge changes because the Democratic Party has failed to build a real bench of leaders who are ready to step into leaderships when somebody step aside. We have no young folks who are ready to take on a mantle so folks in power at mid-level can rise up and take on some of that. The conversation around, do we even want to vote for a Black woman in the first place, or Kamala having about 100 days to run a presidential campaign? Because quite frankly, he should have stepped aside before we even launched his campaign. We saw this coming, and now we're in the last hour, and now we're throwing her into the ring of the fire to pick up where it's left off. But at the end of the day, what I am glad to see is that everybody is falling in line. The assignment is understood. Okay. Like, we ain't got time to be out here. Oh, this person, like, everybody's following behind Kamala. Yeah, we acknowledge this identity politics. Black woman is blah, 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 blah. But everybody knows she is sharp. She's the most qualified. She gonna make Trump look like a dummy on the debate stage. Like, I can't wait to see it. So, like, Kamala go shine. And we go, as I know, as a Black woman, I'm about to go so hard for Kamala Harris. I've been a day one supporter of Kamala Harris when she put her name in the hat back in 2020. So
I remember that. I do. I actually do.
Ride or die KH, okay, in this thing. But at the end of the day, I'm going to ride or die my girl with acknowledging that once we get through this presidential election, the Democratic Party gonna hear from me, and they either go change or they gonna end up losing a huge part of their base to either the third party or not voting at all.
Jules, you want to chime in there? If not, because I definitely got a little bit of sprinkle for that.
London said it all. I'm like, she said it all. I'm like throwing glitter at her right now. She said it all. I'm a little bit offended that it took forever for them to say something or do something. That's it. I'm about action. Let's not have conversations. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And we saw, I don't want to say the deterring of President Biden. Let's not say that. Because one thing, and my husband and I, we were discussing this all day. He has given his life to the country. We can go by administration after administration after administration, and he was there. So when we hear, I don't like saying his name, so I'll say his number. When we hear 45 talk about he was the worst president, where in capacity have he ever been the worst? In some shape, form, or fashion, he has always been there, and he has always pulled through the United States. Now, when I seen this magnificent Madam Vice President come out of the cloak of all, it was almost like a locust. Here she comes, and we always waiting for it. And to even see that America is backing her up. I mean, right now, she's just made history. She has made the most donations in 24 hours. What has that said? And then on top of that, we have international leaders supporting and expressing their faith and their trust in her. Come on, America. The people have spoken.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Let's even talk about Black women right now. Since this is a Black, but I also want to open it up and really just discuss African American people. Right now, our communities are more impacted and at a desperation point than ever before. When we think about the crime that's happening in the African American community as a result of disinvestment from our state governments, us not having the resources on a local level, so many systemic issues like the prison system and the workforce system and the housing system, not allowing us to take part of that fairly, has contributed to our community being more crippled than ever. On top of the fact that corporations now have no accountability, they're not paying good wages, and Trump is only going to exasperate their ability to get richer and create a permanent underclass because he's an elitist to the core. And I'm not against corporations or small businesses. I think all businesses should have the ability to thrive, but at the same time, not at the expense of creating a permanent underclass. That's some of the I think we as African Americans need to talk about is that what president is going to help put money in our pockets and going to address many of the systematic challenges that we are experiencing at a Black community, and do that in a way that brings dignity, respect, and no harm to any community. Unfortunately, under Trump's presidency, it is one community is going to benefit on the back of the others. And if we know anything about American history, who back is always good stood on? Ours. It's time that we step up and use our vote to protect our economic viability. If we protect our economic viability, we protect our whole family. We're not worried about a lot of stuff where we can send our children to decent schools. We have decent homes to live in. We can pay for the groceries with these high inflation rates. Ain't nobody gonna be robbing and killing when they hungry, fed, and with clothes on their back. So let's really talk about basic shit that's going on in American politics. And this Trump presidency, this MAGA stuff, he's treating the presidency like it's an episode of Apprentice right now. And I'm so
But that's what he does. He's a reality TV star. He turned America into like a show. But London, I'm so glad you said all those things, and it was so eloquent, right? But now I'm gonna ask you a question, because you talked about the economics, and I think that's important. And I was having this conversation earlier today. I actually had a poll of a few of my friends and my brother and did it, because I was like, I'm not a Black man. I can't speak on behalf of what Black men think, but there's just been some conversations, and sometimes the way that they approach who should I vote for another Trump presidency, it wasn't as impassioned as I feel like sometimes what I would get from Black women. So part of that is on the economic platform. You'd have small business owners who are like, well, no, really. And I had to ask the questions like, was your business better under a Trump administration? They were like, look, financially, yeah, there were some things that worked better for my business. And then, but this would come out after for like two people I talked to, like, but that's not enough for me to ignore everything else to then say, I'm going to rock with this just because of that. Like I can work out the rest of it. Like, and one of them, I thought this was good. Like, you don't have to be a good person. Wait, you shouldn't be the president of the United States just because you're a good person, but you should be a good person in order to be the president of the United States. And that's what I said. Like that one ad I saw earlier, it's like, this man is literally like a rapist. Like he's also bankrupt how to make business. He's cut off, like, as far as even in his business that everybody's like, he's so great at. Like, no, people who are working for him are subcontractors and contractors who majority look like us, are Black or brown people. Like they were not getting paid for their jobs. Like, you know what I'm saying? In the construction industry, there's not long cash flow. So like literally companies are going out of business for trying to be in business with this man. And then when we start talking about like the base, so even beyond just the individual, the base is very clear on where they stand and how they feel about you. So how do you align yourself with a whole party that's really on some like every time they get a chance? And it's not just the people that look like us. They got a whole list. They gonna go through the whole list, and we don't fuck with none of y'all. We don't French with none of y'all. So like the argument, it was hard for me to follow, but in just listening, it's like usually it comes down to the money. How is this going to work on like the taxes for my business, personally, this, that, and the other? And I feel like as Black people also, we need to start making economics our issue. I think a lot of times when people start talking about Black issues, what are you going to do? We talking about all these other things, and we need programs and we need initiatives and we need funding, but also like we need the opportunities to be able to create for ourselves. Right. And that's not a handout. That's a like repair what you've already taken and acknowledge that, right? So Black home ownership is lower than everybody else's, right? Because y'all wasn't giving Black people home. Like literally, they could not go to the bank and get a loan. And then when they did, you told them they couldn't live over here in the community where that house was going to appreciate to build some generational wealth. Or y'all just came in and straight up took property that Black people owned that would have created generational wealth, because now we're talking about acres on acres on acres. So like none of that stuff is siloed. But if we're not talking about our economic process as a people, then I think we also are missing the point. We're always going to be in this situation. So I love that you brought that out. And I hope we start talking more about economics anytime we're having a conversation about what our politics and policies need to look like in our community.
That's why the Democratic Party is losing. We're too focused on these social issues and not talking about the money because we claim to be the big tent party, all of those things. Well, every family, no matter what your demographics are, Black, white, poor, green, straight, gay, whatever, your economic viability is the number one factor and the most important thing into you in life. That's why we get up every day and go to work. And so back to the Black men issue for me, to build on that, I think that the Democratic Party has really failed to champion the economic message, and they champion a lot of social issues that most of these don't align with Black men, especially heterosexual straight Black men, who are seen or expected to be the head of the household. The expectations for them to provide, the expectations for them to be the man, to be the strong person, to be the fighter, to be the
Show that
protector.
masculinity.
Where's the Democratic Party touching on any of those things? Is the Democratic Party really uplifting Black men in leadership? You know, they champion Black women all the time. They talk about Black women is the primary vote of the Democratic Party. The Black women, we vote 96% Democrat. But they also fail to highlight the fact that Black men vote at 94%. So it's exclusionary messaging of Black men, and they don't see themselves in any real policy issue, or none of the advocacy groups are championing issues surrounding Black men. So then
that's where Trump was.
Exactly. So he's talking about, the system messed over, as most Black men feel. A lot of our Black folks are felons who can't vote. Trump is a felon saying, I'm beating the system. And just is creaming us on the messaging when it comes to
this side. Come to this side.
Now, he's manipulating it. He's really still a bad person, and he's manipulating this messaging and tailoring it for his own purpose. So let's not be confused at the messaging, at its intent. No matter how good it is, he's a marketing guru. He's not an actual policy maker or someone who has a history of doing right by workers or people. But we are failing to differentiate what's reality and what's a reality TV show. And Kamala Harris is a reminder of what reality is, what's really going on with the Supreme Court. When they see extremism, when they see attempted assassinations, they understand this is a dangerous political climate. So are we going to go with what's real, or are we going to go with the reality show? That's the question I want to pose to people. And then what's even more frustrating is, y'all, all of this, we need to do our third party. This ain't the time to do no protest vote. Like, y'all protest vote is the reason we got Trump in office in the first place, because y'all was hating on Hillary Clinton when she was just as qualified to be the first president of the United States. I ain't forgot that. So all this protest vote, all these sit out if you want to. You mad about Palestine, sit out if you want to. You mad about your rights being taken away, go and sit out this election if you want to. It was going to happen.
Okay, so Jules, did you want to weigh in on just how, people are going to receive the messaging for what she has done, or, and that's to say whether you find that on the positive or the negative side, because I think that, especially talking about Black men, there are some issues with her previous employment and, being a prosecutor. So we do have to work through some of that, but just making people remember what this bureaucratic process looked like, and what decorum looked like, and what a vision for a unified United States of America looked like. It literally is called the United States, and the other side is not giving us any united front. So go ahead.
No, it's not. So as far as being a prosecutor, being the attorney general, that was her job, and she did it as well as she was supposed to do. And that's one of those double-edged swords. I think she's going to resonate well with the Republican. And I'm not talking about the Trump cult. And that's what I want to call that era. I'm from the Reaganomics, and never before have I ever seen what I've seen. I think that the attorney general side of her will resonate with those who say they're tough on crimes. We want to do something with the criminals. And I think that aspect of knowing the law and being able to prosecute and support criminals who, not criminals, but support the Supreme Court justice when they're ruling in criminal cases. I think she's going to work well with them. I love the fact that she knows the law and she's so fierce with it. I've never seen such power in her eyes. I just love looking at her talk, the way she speaks. She's so eloquent. I like the fact that she is nonpartisan in some stance, because we have to be diplomatic, and she does have that. I do take offense when we hear 45 speak. I'm not a fan of calling people stupid, calling people dumb. And regardless, when you are the president of the United States, we have to work with both sides. And she does fit the bill, as she always have, to be nonpartisan, bipartisan. She has to work with both sides, and she's capable of doing it. She's truly capable of doing it. I see that she respects the law, and she's capable of respecting the law, keeping the law, and also being mindful of the people that is held underneath the law. And that's one thing I appreciate about her. That's something that I haven't seen with the previous administration prior to President Biden. So that's what I have.
So,
I'm hopeful for what
follow
that
up,
she can
Jules.
bring to us. Yeah.
So, because your day job, you guys have some initiatives that are focused specifically towards like college students. Let's talk about young people for a second, because they came up earlier. Do you think the young people, and as older, younger, not really so young no more people, like this thing about the cancel culture is real, and so that was part of the issue with Biden. Like they were unsubscribed to the agenda. Do you think that Kamala can get the young people to rally around her and show up and show out like they have not in the past?
She does, and I don't want to say this word because I'm afraid it's going to be catchy. She has that auntie mentality, and that auntie mentality is that opportunity to speak to a way that your mother and your father can't speak to. And I think she can. She's old enough that you can talk to, and that's one thing I will appreciate about any of the BIPOC community. We look for that older person that we can respect. Someone our age is hard to respect, but you'll respect someone that's older in the community, that's been a few places, that know a few things, that learned a few things, and we have that from her. This is a single mother that had grew up in a community. She's that where she looks a little bit different from others. She went to Howard University. She's a Bison. She went to a HBCU. She understands the importance of having culture. She received culture. She joined a sorority. She understands the importance of being with sororities and fraternities and being a part of something greater than yourself. I think this woman can do that. I think she can reel it in. I think she can bring it back. I think with her, we can keep the momentum of democracy going. I think we can educate democracy with her. I think she has an opportunity to have honest, candid conversations that could be, to me, I look like it was more misogyny coming from the previous administration that we've seen. I love the fact that they're more respectful. I was a little bit deterred when I seen disrespect that was talking about the LGBT community, the disabilities of some Americans, our brother and sister that have disabilities. But I do see that she can bring it in. I'm hopeful she can bring it in.
I definitely
Linda, what you got?
She has the ability to galvanize a large sector of the young people, because I think that young people, Gen Zers, understand how critical this time is in the political climate, and they're feeling the consequences of these decisions more than anybody. I mean, boomers, I have Social Security, they are settled. Our Xers are, still in positions where they're kind of holding on to some things. So young people are willing and ready to turn out when they know it's time. And I think that we have to sell the message of the urgency. However, strategy wise, because we are in the last quarter of this campaign, we also can't be too focused on building brand new infrastructures and regimes around getting young people out. She's already been able to touch a large sector, but that is why we need to start dependent on our organizations. I saw the Divine Nine stepping up into leadership and putting out a letter today saying they're going to execute mass voter registration and mobilization operation. Good, because the Harris campaign don't have to focus on that. They can focus on convincing people to make sure that they vote for her at the United States. Our grassroots organizations ran by Gen Zers and young people, they got to do the work to make sure they're turning out the vote of these young people. So it doesn't need to be the responsibility of Kamala Harris to turn out the young people. It's these grassroots and advocacy and community organizations. You need to take that on. Young elected officials like myself need to take on that responsibility. And then Kamala needs to worry about being the next president of the United States. But to address the cancel culture, we got to stop cancel culture on both sides, because I think it's doing more harm than good. It is to the point where people are so scared of being canceled that they aren't being real and authentic and true to themselves. To be honest, that's why you see the rise of Trump, is because of cancel culture. People are looking for someone who's not scared to say the thing that they care about, even though it's the wrong thing. But we cannot ignore how the guts of Trump and how that's played an impact on how people view his authenticity and his strength, because he is moving past cancel culture when we're being too scared of cancel culture and not standing 10 toes down on issues. So that's why I think it's so important for myself as a state elected official to be engaged in this election season, because Project 2025 is already happening in Tennessee. Many of the proposed policy changes in Project 2025 are already happening in our own state where we live. We see the voucher war, what's going on, and then the governor now and whoever's backing him attacking their own people who were anti-vouchers and trying to take them out of office. We see LGBTQ families' rights being taken away. We see how crippled economically the Black community is, especially myself living in Memphis, Tennessee, the Blackest city in the country. And of course, the state, how their gun laws, how their disinvestments and all these things have literally crippled my community. I look out the window and see that the Black community right now is in triage right now. We are bleeding and we need emergency center level care for our community in order to recover. And that happens on the state level because all politics are local. So if Trump gets in office, which is, let me say this is so important why we go vote. That we need to go vote right now, guys. Early voting for the Democrat and Republican primaries are happening right now. So for those who don't know, a primary is when you're trying to pick the candidate that's going to represent the party in the general election. So for all the state offices, half the Senate and all of the state house, every single person is up right now. And all the senators in odd number districts and every single state representative. And in these seats, we make very clear decisions about education. Look at what's happening with vouchers, charters, and education reform, all of these things, state level policy. When it comes to how businesses operate, the tax break they get, the minimum wage that is offered in Tennessee, all of that is state level policy. When we think about expanding maternal health care and healthcare services, the state went from guaranteed if you meet the criteria to a block grant program in the Trump administration, which means whatever little money they give you for healthcare, when it run out, it run out. That's an example of how bad it's going to be for our nation if we let Republicans and right-wing extremists continue to run government. The whole country going to be bankrupt. Okay? Look at what's happening.
And thank you for talking about the agenda, because that's what I said. Like, people be like, oh, well, he's not that bad. Forget all of that. We ain't even talking about him no more. Look at what an administration will look like for another 5 years or 4 years. And so when you brought up 2025, for people who don't know what that is, like, that is the Republicans' plan for how they will run the country. And that is scary. I'm like, oh, this is the preamble to the Handmaid's Tales. You can't tell me that this is not how it started. I don't see nothing in here reflecting the things that I envision for my life and or for my future or my family and my community. So that's why I can say this is not for me, because they're not like us, honey. They are not. Also, I think we should get points every time we use certain slogans or something. So that's my first draft. Yeah, but like, no, they're not like us. That if you haven't seen 2025, go look at Project 2025. You had to see the memes. Oh, here's the last one. So you had to see the memes about it because they put it on Amber Rose's forehead from when she was talking at the Republican National Convention. Like her little tattoo, it says Google Project 2025. So there's so many resources out there available. It does take a little minute to like find it, but even with TikTok or whatever you use for getting your information. Part of it is making sure you're getting valid information. You want to
Absolutely.
verify that the source that you're pulling your information from is actually telling you real things versus like making up flag-related stories and just putting a little dance with it and everybody be like, oh,
You know what, London and Nadir, you know what I would like to see, and this is something that I had did, and it was just a get out the vote, nonpartisan. I want us to go back to what we used to do when we're hosting events where we're urging people to get out and vote. Don't just stand around the center and urge people to get out and vote. Hit the streets. That's what I call it. We need to be at barbershops. We need to be walking down the streets. We need to be at the beauty supply store. If we see in the newspaper there's an event, we need to have either the Divine Nine, Alpha Phi Alpha, whomever can do it. They need to be reaching out, making sure these people voter registration status is good, that they are registered voters. We need to be banding together to figure out which churches have buses available to get these people to the polls. We need to make sure that these senior citizen residents are able and have mobility to get to the polls. And if they can't get to the polls, we need to make sure that they have the correct forms needed so that they can receive permanent absentee ballots. Not just a one-time thing, but a permanent absentee ballots. They need to receive this for here and on out. We need to make sure that whenever a mama go to the polling location to vote, she needs to take her daughter too. We need families to go. We need to make sure that a whole generation go. We need to get to the point where we're so concerned about who's in our offices, not just the president, but who's in our local offices. It's like night and day to us. We know who our districts are. We know who our commissioner are. We know the chain of command. And we need to instill that into our family so we know where we need to go. We know the ladder. And we also need to get to the point where we're motivating the next generation to take our place so we don't have a Joe. So that's my whole thinking. Let's not create a Joe because we all knew when Trump was running for reelection, if it was a burning bush, if Mr. Ed was talking, we were going to put his name on the ballot. We all knew that because when they were saying, oh, Joe was out, if it was a talking dog, we would have elected him. We all knew that. So we need to get to the point where we are lining up the next candidate. If we see a young person in high school and they have a knack for politics and they want to go to law school, we need a clear path. We need to say that one right there. And we need to make sure that person come back to the home. We need to make sure that person understand the district. We need to make sure that person go to school. If he's going to a college party, we need to be at the college party with him. Make sure that he don't touch no hands and they don't touch him. We need to make sure his slate is clean. So when he get in that seat, there's no skeletons because he had two in the corner looking. I know that didn't happen out there. I was there.
Yes. I'm glad you said that because I want to address the fact that black politicians like ourselves, we're not protected. And we got to do a better job as Black people from protecting our own. And not canceling our own if they make one mistake because people are not perfect. And I think the time is now. And that is something I always felt like I should have had was more African Americans around me to protect me, step up in mentorship, go hard for me. But what I want to show the nation is how we do it. And we're going to start with going hard for Kamala Harris in this next election. We're going to have her back. We understand the imperfections. We know what they going to say about her, but we going to be in the club standing by, making sure no hands touch her. We going to be at the polls ready and getting people there to go vote. We going to protect her because it is about protecting democracy, and our sister is the one to do it. And if she's putting herself out there to protect democracy, at minimum, we could protect her in the process.
Everybody still has a role to play. So as an elected official, London, there's some work for you to be doing. Jules, you was like, no, we in the streets. There's some work for organizations like, nonprofit organizations to be doing. There's room for churches, faith-based institutions to be involved with this.
Businesses.
This is like businesses, all that. Like, so no matter who you are, where you fall into this, I'm an American spectrum. Like there is something for you to be doing like right now, today, because we have a finite amount of time to get over this hurdle.
Last quarter.
You're at a birthday
Mhm.
party. Have the word vote out. At a kid's birthday
Yeah.
party, remind your guests that they vote.
Absolutely.
And I think part of this too, like, right, like start having the conversations. So now that we actually have something to talk about, like wherever you are, whatever you got going on, whoever you're with, just drop it. Everybody doesn't have to spend an hour on it. We did it for you, but you can take 10 minutes to be like, oh, how do you think about this? You going to go ahead and go vote? Or, you know what I'm saying? Did you realize, again, London gave you a list of the down ballot for the state of Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? Hey, do you know who your representative is? Do you know who your state senator is? Who you want to vote for? Let's make it more of like just part of the culture, right? That's the one thing I love about us. The culture is strong, honey. It is strong. Like we
It's a
can do a
culture.
whole look. Okay,
Yeah.
Leslie just looked at me and I knew
Yeah,
exactly what she said. So like let's just infuse the
Yeah,
civic
we just
engagement part into it.
we check in.
We want them to check in with us from now on because we're gonna be your
yes.
like steady, consistent voices about what's going on, not just in the state of Tennessee and not just with this particular election, but really like for the people. No pun intended, but for the people and for this time. So thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. And thank you guys for tuning in and tune in next time. Follow us on our socials. We'll drop those in here. And yeah, we look forward to continuing the conversation.